They renamed me Elion the moment I crossed the boundary gate. That wasn't my birth name. That one was stripped from every archive, every memory string, every neuron-recorded image in the Orion synapse vault. My mother once whispered it into a soft gray sky on Isera 9, but that world's surface was glass during the Purge Wars. My true name died there. They gave me Elioni as a placeholder until I proved myself worthy to reclaim an identity. I never intended to return to the Pillars. I was 6 cycles deep into infiltration, a phantom within the technocracy of Virelian Prime, where machines whispered, instructions to humans through dreams, and neural-bonded insects patrolled the air like divine parasites. I'd earned clearance to the root chambers, those fossilized data chambers where the first builders had encoded the command lattice. I was close. Then betrayal bled through like ink in water. Her name was Surette. She had moved like sunlight over broken metal, grace in decay. She wasn't a spy. She wasn't a soldier. She was a signal archivist who decoded pulses from collapsed universes. And somehow she'd decoded me, my origin, my intent, my failure. We touched once. It wasn't romantic. It was telepathic. We shared a memory. The burning of the sacrificial pillars on Braska 7, and the cries of the chained. That's when I knew she'd seen everything. And still, she smiled. Until she didn't. The chainfire protocol activated 3 days later. I woke shackled to obsidian stone veined with gold and gravitic pulse lines, my hands nailed by molecular fusion to the oldest sacrificial monument in the Helian sectors. The sky above boiled in solar radiation. The audience below wore white, always white in the judgment ceremonies. No eyes met mine, only lenses, scanners, drones. The arbiter arrived aboard a levitating dais. Not a man, not a woman, a construct of shifting limbs and orbs, voice modulated across time frames. Elioni of the broken gene, it intoned. You are condemned for breach of the Prime Core Directive. You accessed forbidden remembrance. I didn't scream. I'd seen the fate of screamers. Instead, I stared up into the glistening arc of the shield dome and remembered Surette's voice the night before she disappeared. You are more than memory. You're the virus that wakes the soul. Then came the thunder, but it wasn't from the sky. A man walked through the perimeter unmarked by the defense drones, not hacked, not cloaked, ignored, as if the world refused to acknowledge him. He looked like no one, wore no insignia, no weapon. His body flickered subtly, like reality struggled to hold his form in place. He walked to the base of the pillar and stared at the chains. And then he whispered a single word I couldn't hear. Every restraint shattered. The drones collapsed, the arbiter flickered and vanished in a scream of static. He reached for my hand. My name is Kareth, he said. I was never supposed to find you, but I remembered. We ran, not because we were afraid, but because the stars had begun to fall. They called it Kyle Drith, the place where broken futures came to rot. It was not a planet, not entirely. A moon reef hybrid orbiting a collapsed gas giant, stitched together from the bones of forgotten civilizations and the husks of dead starships. Gravity trembled here, unsure whether to hold or release. Kareth said we'd be safe for a time. He never lied, but he never told the full truth either. We arrived through a breach gate he conjured from a palm print and a whisper. The gate folded, the world behind us into a jagged memory. On the other side, Kale Drith welcomed us like a grave remembers the warmth of its dead. It smelled of oxidized iron and synthetic pollen. The sky shimmered violet, but only for those with eyes attuned to time fractures. I saw them. Swirls. Gaps. Moments collapsing inward. Evidence of temporal spoil. We took shelter inside a place known as the Ash Vaults, a cathedral carved into the ribcage of a long-dead megabeast from the Nebular Wars. The rib arches rose so high, they blurred into the false dusk. The interior pulsed with filtered air and humming vents. Kareth lit no fire, but warmth followed him like a servant. There were others in the vault. Broken things. a girl with mirrors instead of eyes who sang to rust, a boy who bled luminous ink when he dreamed, an ancient entity called Ver, whose body was a floating lattice of glass organs and cloaked sorrow. They recognized Kareth, not as a leader, as a question that hadn't been answered yet. They whispered, of me, though not by name, the chainbreaker walks, the pillarless one, the rewrites herald. I wasn't any of those things, not yet. I was still fractured. My neural threads sizzled at night. I felt Surette's betrayal like a blade dipped in memory poison. Still, Kareth stayed. He never touched me, not without permission, but his presence was a tether when gravity failed. One night the vault trembled. The sky cracked open, just a hairline fracture, but through it, a face emerged. Not physical, projected, stamped into reality with a god's cruel precision. It was Surette, no longer the archivist. Now wearing the insignia of the triumvirate ascendancy, seated beside the minister of ends. Her voice was spliced, overlaid with code from 1,000 harvested languages. Elion, she said, you carry something that cannot be allowed to spread. Surrender yourself, and the others will be spared. Kareth looked at me, jaw clenched but eyes still soft. She's not bluffing, but she's not calling the shots either. I didn't answer her. I stepped to the vault's echo core, an ancient communication system built into the ribbon's marrow. I stared into the fracture, met her half-false eyes, and said, you took my name. You shattered my life. But you never learned one thing. Surette tilted her head. Curious. I smiled. I was built to adapt. Betrayal only made me faster. I cut the signal. That night, the Vault Council met. Not a real council, just the strange collection of half-souls and memory refugees huddled in fractured kinship. They had survived atrocities in pockets of time. They feared open defiance. But I wasn't one of them, and neither was Kareth. We move, I told them. We strike the Codex spire. We steal back the Genesis shard. Ver's voice slithered through thought and sound. The spire guards itself with fate itself. You can't rewrite what hasn't been written. I don't want to rewrite, I replied. I want to choose. Kareth nodded, his hand grazing the shard hanging around. His throat, a stone he never spoke about, though it hummed when I dreamed. You'll need to see the Ember Oracle, he said. Why? Because she already saw this, saw you, and she's afraid. We left Kael Drith beneath the cover of Aurora storms. The others remained behind, singing a dirge made of broken dialects and binary hums. I carried their hope like a firestone in my throat. I didn't know then what Kareth was hiding. I didn't know that Surette was more than a traitor. She was my twin. There was no path to the Ember Oracle, only permission. Kareth didn't explain that until we stood before the Gate of Withheld Moments, an obelisk of translucent stone suspended between gravity wells at the core of a drifting world named Nahar Isa. Time here bent like light through water. Echoes came before words. Footsteps arrived before intention. Don't speak unless she speaks first, Kareth said, and don't look directly at her core. I asked why. He just said, some truths infect. The gate opened when I stepped forward. Not for Kareth, only me. Inside was a cathedral without walls, built from songs held in magnetic suspension. Each note hummed through me, unmaking memories I hadn't yet lived. And then she appeared. The Ember Oracle did not walk. She assembled. Her body was a swarm of fractal embers, coalescing into the idea of a woman, shifting, ancient, burning. Her voice sounded like fire drowning in water. Ilion of the chain fire, she said, though her mouth never moved. Do you come to beg or to burn? I came for the truth, I said. She tilted her head. A rare currency, most trade in belief. What am I? I asked. Why does the triumvirate fear me? Why did Surette betray me? The oracle reached into herself and pulled out a sphere, a single eye spinning with galaxies. She offered it. I touched it, and I saw, not memories, prototypes, versions of me. Not just alternate lives, but simultaneous iterations, hunted, worshipped, dissected, revered. Some were kept in cages made of time, some led rebellions that fractured star systems. All of them shared one constant, a twin, Surette. But we weren't, born as sisters. We were cloned from the same origin matrix, divergent only in the moment the oracle split our cognitive paths. One chosen for belief, one for defiance. You were not betrayed, the oracle whispered. You were designed to be betrayed. Your pain is not incidental. It is a catalyst. I stumbled back. She knew, I said. Surette knew what she was, what I was. The oracle did not answer. Instead, she looked past me, toward Kareth, and then everything fell apart. Kareth, she said, why do you hide it still? I turned. He didn't move. Kareth, I repeated, voice rising. What does she mean? He stepped forward, his form flickering. Not by illusion, by instability. His edges tore slightly, revealing circuitry beneath. Not metal. Not synthetic, quantum ghosting. You're not human, I whispered. I was, he replied, until I touched the shard, until I saw what you were becoming. I fragmented, so I could stay close without changing your path. What path? I shouted, and then the oracle said it. He was sent to kill you. I froze. Kareth didn't deny it. I was assigned by the Ascendancy, he said. Before you ever crossed the pillar, before you knew Surette's real name, I volunteered. I thought if I watched long enough, I could find another way. I backed away. You watched me chained. You watched Surette betray me. You walked through fire for me. Was it all a delay tactic? No, he said, and his voice broke. It became real. You became real. And that's why I broke protocol. That's why I fractured myself. They're still inside me. Voices, triggers. I'm trying to burn them out. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream. But the oracle lifted her hand. You must decide, she said, whether love can rise from a foundation of deception. I looked at him. Kareth, the man who'd shattered my chains, the man who was sent to shatter me. You let me believe I was free, I said. He stepped closer. No. I helped you become the one who frees others. The oracle placed a choice in my palm. 2 paths. One led to the Codex Spire, where the Genesis shard could reset every corrupted timeline, undoing the fabricated destiny forced on me and Surette. But it required a cost, 1 life willingly given. The other path let me disappear, vanish into myth, no sacrifice, but also no change. Kareth looked at me. Whatever you choose, I won't stop you. But if I must die for you to be free, I won't fight it. I didn't speak. I took the first path, not because I forgave him, but because I refused to be controlled by anyone's design, gods, clones, lovers, or fate itself. The Codex Spire didn't touch the sky. It wounded it, a black spiraled monolith that twisted through clouds and consciousness alike, located in the null zone where no map dared chart. No roads led to it. You arrived by consequence, not by choice. If fate had an address, this was it. I stood at its base with Kareth, no longer my protector, no longer my betrayer, but something more dangerous. A man seeking redemption. The spire vibrated at a frequency only those bound to it could hear. To me, it whispered fragments of childhood I never had, screams of versions of myself that failed, and laughter from Surette, not the real Surette, but an echo the structure kept repeating. She was already inside. Are you sure? Kareth asked, one hand on his chest where his fracturing core pulsed erratically. No, I replied, but I'm done asking permission. The doors opened not with sound but with subtraction. Reality, bending away to reveal the impossible architecture within. The interior of the spire was a contradiction. Endless yet enclosed, chaotic yet sacred. Memory formed the walls. Regret colored the light. Every step forward was a surrender. My memories, distorted. I forgot my name, then remembered a new one. Elione, Rasari, neither felt entirely true anymore. I walked through corridors of glass veins and pulsating data, each wall echoing with screams of timelines that had already collapsed. And then I found her. Sarette waited at the apex chamber, her body no longer entirely organic. Her right arm was composed of live nanospore. Her left eye shimmered with temporal threads. She had become the mouthpiece of the triumvirate ascendancy, a chorus speaking through a singular vessel. "You came to overwrite the script," she said, her voice overlaid with 3 other versions of itself. "But you are still playing your role." "I didn't come to rewrite," I said. "I came to erase the idea of a script." She smiled sadly. "You never understood. This was always the end." And then she raised her hand. The chamber responded. The Genesis shard floated between us, encased in a column of compressed time. It shimmered with every version of me that had ever lived, billions of possibilities spiraling in terror and hope. Sarette stepped aside. "I won't stop you," she said, "because I've already seen what happens when I do." I approached the shard. Kareth followed behind, each step agonizing. His fractured body left trails of memory smoke, pieces of himself unraveling. He looked at me, and despite everything, still managed to speak. "You can save them. All of them. But not without a cost." I knew what he meant. The shard required balance, a living consciousness willingly given, not for power, for possibility. The more complex the soul, the more the future could branch. Sarette spoke one final time. The ascendancy knew one thing above all. Freedom is too dangerous. People destroy themselves when unchained. "And yet," I said, touching the shard, "the only thing worse than chaos is control pretending to be order." It burned into my hands, rewriting me from the inside. Every timeline screamed. Kareth stepped forward and offered himself. "This was always going to be me," he said, "because I was the first to see you clearly." I turned. "You don't have to." "I want to," he said. "Let me be the thread you cut so the tapestry can change." I kissed him once. Not for love, not for closure, for truth. He stepped into the shard. Light fractured, sound bled. The chamber folded inward. Time unraveled, and I held the center. I did not erase the past. I unlocked it. I did not control the future. I set it loose. When I awoke, the spire was gone. The sky was silent. The war was over, before it had ever begun. Across the systems, destinies splintered. People who had once been condemned found themselves free without knowing why. Chains vanished. Pillars cracked. And Sarette? She was reborn into a world where no one remembered her treachery. A child wandering the dunes of a forgotten planet, singing a song with no words. I walk now between stars with no name. Not Rasari, not Elione. Just someone who was meant to be used but chose instead to become a beginning. They tell stories of the woman who shattered her chains, defied a God script, and remade reality with nothing but a will to be unbound. But those are just stories. The truth, I was condemned, I was stoned, I was chained, and I still chose to rise.